Today, I'm going to show you guys exactly how I was able to catch shorts on the biggest sell-off in the market that we've had in months. Okay, so I'm going to go over every step that I took to enter this trade. I had QQQ puts. I entered them yesterday and held them overnight. I'm now recording this Friday afternoon after the market closed, and we just had a 3.5% down day on the NASDAQ, and I was able to catch a good amount of that downside, like I said, via QQQ puts. So let's go into everything that went into this trade and how I was able to catch it. Okay, so the first thing, if we go into replay mode, right? So right here, we're on the 1 hour chart. And yesterday, I noticed that we had an inversion fair value gap on the NASDAQ. Okay. And that's when I entered puts right away on QQQ. They were October 31st, 605 puts. And my goal with these was pretty simple. All of last week and earlier this week, we had built up a ton of low resistance liquidity right here. Okay, so that means that this is a strong draw on liquidity. We've got a ton of relative equal lows right here. If you kind of just mark out this little trend line, and then we have an imbalance low. These are some of my favorite targets for any trade, right? So an imbalance low, and this is going to look better on the 4 hour chart. I've explained these before. It's basically just a significant set of lows or significant swing low inside of a bullish fair value gap. Now, you can have the opposite too, where you have an imbalance high, and it would just look like if you flip the chart, it would be a high inside of a bearish fair value gap. So anyway, I saw this one. This is a massive 4 hour gap. It's going to be a drawn liquidity. Then we have a set of relative equal lows inside of it. So at this point, when I see that inversion fair value gap, both on the 4 hour and on the 1 hour chart, I decide, okay, let me get into some QQQ puts here and try to swing it down to these lows. Now, the reason I went with options instead of futures is pretty obvious. I don't trade on a live futures account. I use prop firms, and obviously you cannot swing trade on prop firms. And when you're targeting a strong draw on liquidity that's over 1% downside from the spot you enter, it's obviously going to be a better play to take with options, because what are the odds you're really going to catch a 1% plus move down with futures, right? So like I said, the reason I took this trade had a lot to do with the draw on liquidity, and it had a lot to do with this inversion on the 1 hour right here. And my plan for this trade, it was about 2.5R, was to stop out at all-time highs, okay? Because my theory was that we should come down and take this out before taking or making new all-time highs. And it actually came pretty close to stopping us out this morning, but that Trump news absolutely bailed us in a way. But like I said, the draw on liquidity was a big factor in why the market sold off so aggressively due to that news, okay? And so we'll just go right here and play what happened. So yesterday and overnight, we end up getting a pretty much full recovery, but we never end up making new all-time highs, okay? And I saw something this morning on ES that really, really caught my eye. So as you guys can see, we had NQ this morning manipulate to the upside. We took out all of this liquidity that we had generated overnight on the buy side, but we did not touch all-time highs, and we started rejecting very fast. So right when market opened today, I wanted to be patient because I had a feeling we were manipulating when we pumped up, but we ended up selling off. So I felt fine about holding my puts, right? Because we had inverted. It was basically a Judas swing, one of the biggest ones that I've ever seen, given what happened afterwards throughout the day, right? So we'll go to the ES chart side by side here because I want to show you guys an important factor in my decision to keep holding this trade, right? So right here, we have NQ on the left of your screen, and ES is on the right, okay? So one thing I saw with NQ and ES that really made me want to hold was an SMT. So if you look, the 9 a.m., yeah, candle from Thursday, October 25th, aka yesterday, we ended up taking that high out and some on NQ this morning. But if you look at ES, we never did, and we never took all-time highs on either one. So you have to look at the context, because SMT, for those of you wondering, in the most basic definition of how I use it, and I have a video on it, it's a divergence between ES and NQ. Now, when one of them makes a higher high and one of them makes a lower high, that's typically bearish. If one of them makes a higher low and the other makes a lower low, that's typically bullish, okay? So in this scenario, when you've got the divergence like this, one of them makes a higher high compared to one candle and the other makes a lower high, that's a bearish signal. Now, if ES had taken this high, I probably would have been even more maybe inclined to escape my position, since I was a little bit underwater on it this morning, especially when we manipulated to the upside. But the fact that we did not take all-time highs on either index, but we did not take previous high on ES while taking it on NQ made me very confident that this trade was at least going to start to play out. Did not think it would happen as fast as it did. Because if you look, and I'll get out of replay mode here soon, we actually melted straight down to my target. It took like, I believe it was less than an hour. We'll go check back. But like I said, the big thing here that made me confident this was good was the SMT, right? Divergence between ES and NQ. The sellers are starting to step in before people really notice. That's kind of what that means. And with that tool, you can use it to kind of affirm your bias. Now, when you see an SMT like this, you usually want to short the index that makes the lower high as opposed to the one that makes the higher high. So in a sense, I was kind of on the wrong side of it, but honestly, it didn't end up mattering much because first of all, I had already bought QQQ puts the day before, so I wasn't just going to rotate into SPY puts just based off the SMT because obviously also, if one of them falls, the other falls. If it's like a big move like this, and I know we have some days with ES kind of flat, NQ down a bit or vice versa, but if it's going to be a big move down to a certain draw in liquidity, both of them are going to be red, right? If you're shorting. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And also, NQ tends to be more volatile to the downside. So if bad news strikes or whatever, usually NQ is down more. And that held true again today because we were down about 3.5% on NQ and about 2.6 on ES. So ended up dumping more on NQ anyway. But now let's get to when this started playing out. So like I said, in the morning, we had a Judas swing, failed to take all-time highs, started showing some real bearishness, reversal on the 1-minute chart, which is what I'm always watching for day trades anyway. And if you just play it up a bit, we chopped forever this morning, but we never took those highs again. We never made a move back to those highs. And right here is where we absolutely shit the bed, for lack of better words, right? And so that was basically it. I mean, if you go to the 1-hour chart, my target hit immediately if you go to NQ. So especially when this hourly chart closed right here, or this hourly candle, my bad. So we had the, let me select the bar so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Yeah. So when this hourly candle closed, I felt pretty good. It was annoying that we didn't close below this low and like confirm a shorter term market structure shift, but I still felt confident because we had manipulated to the upside, failed to take all-time highs like I keep mentioning, and we also had inverted this 1-hour bullish fair value gap from the move back up the day before, right? So we had a new low hourly close in the past several days, and that ended up taking us literally right down to my low resistance liquidity, trend line liquidity type target right here, and then this imbalance low right here. And I will put up the executions on the screen. I already probably did, but there's the entry and there is the exit. Ended up flipping these for almost 85%. And like, obviously I would have made more if I had held them, right? You can always say like, oh, I shouldn't have sold this because they kept running, right? So I was manually, since you don't really do like take profits and limit sells, whatever on options, I was just sitting at my desk manually exiting this the second we hit this area. And as you can see, we continued to knife through, and then the rest of the day, we also continued to sell off. So like I said, coulda, shoulda, woulda. I'm not going to trip about the fact that I missed an extra leg down when in reality, I followed my plan, took profit at my targets, both of them, right? Took partials here, then exited the full position here. And it was a great trade. Very good trade. We ended up melting right down to the liquidity. That was clearly a strong draw because like I said, the news can happen whenever, right? The news is the news. But the technicals this morning were showing manipulation to the upside, which led to downside follow through even before we actually got the news. And we had an SMT and we had a lot of low resistance sell side built up down here. So yes, news is a factor in the markets, but if you trade long enough, you'll start to realize like it's almost like the charts know before the news because something was clearly fishy with the way the market was moving based on all the indicators and kind of signs that I've shown you guys throughout this video. So like I said, banger trade. Did not really take any futures trades today. This was an options trade type of day because I had entered for a swing earlier yesterday and I ended up holding through. They were down probably 25-30% at the highs this morning, but since we never broke structure to the upside, since we never closed above a new all-time high on any time frame nor hit one, had to stay in and got rewarded big time. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed me recapping the trade with transparency, as always, showing you guys my entry and exit confirmations. And yeah, always real around here. If you guys are still watching, you're probably very interested in trading. If that's the case, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, join my free Discord. It is linked in my YouTube bio. It is completely free. Literally, just click the link and you're in, and you can trade with me live, talk to me, interact with me. Like I said, I'm a small creator still, so I get back to every single one of you. If you don't believe me, hop in, ask me a question. I guarantee you I'll answer. So, with that being said, I appreciate you all. Catch you in the next one. Peace.